Baby, you'll be back.
Cheers.
We'll miss the train. I wonder if any of us ever get back there.
It's a good idea, the 4 weeks, just to let you have a look round. It surprised me how it seemed to run itself all the time. No trouble at all, seemed to run smoothly.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be.
Smoothly anyway.
If you take a company or something outside, you've got a managing director and a manager of this, that, and the other walking around. There didn't seem to be any of that. The whole thing seemed to run quite smoothly, just with ordinary officers who knew the job. And there didn't seem to be anybody going around issuing orders or anything like that.
No, the authority did seem to be in the background, although hovering. You know, just as the same as I felt authority was on my shoulder all the way through this 4 weeks. You know, somebody seemed to be watching me all the time. Mind, I felt good about this because I thought, well, if one of these blokes gets a bit funny, at least there's somebody around.
Well, during the next 4 weeks here, I want you to wear these Hmp badges on your lapels. Now, this tells all the staff who see you walking around that you're a prison officer under training. Now, I've devised a programme for the next 4 weeks. I'll go into the details more about that later on. But during your time here, you'll be put into various departments within the prison. What I want you all to do is to observe what's going on and to ask questions.
Why did you want to join the prison service?
Well, mainly because there wasn't very much outside, as simple as that.
I see. What were you doing before?
I did 25 years in the Navy, so I know no other job, you know, really.
Yeah.
Back to the uniform, I suppose.
How about you?
Well, I was in the grocery business with my parents, and they decided to retire, and it just wasn't cut out for me, so I decided to try the prison service. What is that?
Good. How about you?
Well, I'm an electrician by trade, had 15 years as an electrician, and just come back from Zambia, and I thought I'd like a change.
Yeah. As far as the prison service is concerned, you know, we're not a judge and jury. We're not the police force. Some prison officers may think that we are, and this is wrong.
As long as it's, you know, I mean, you can argue both ways.
Wait, Sam, you fix this machine?
Look, this is him, we're not in the
It's always hand play.
something I'm trying to work on. This is about 6:30 in the morning. And this is going heavy. I was strolling up the road, and all of a sudden a car came by, out of the window poked 3 heads. All screws, bastards, hello, girl, where are you? They've got it.
Always fun of these blokes. These two chaps that had done time 10 years ago, I suppose. And one said, hello, Sam, and I mean, I never called Sam by emails. Hello, Sam, have they shot you yet? And this was a comment. You know, I said, no.
I knew a doctor in Holloway who said that the bad language was a female.
What's a woman officer doing in here? She's going to take over wheel wing. You're joking.
Sure. There's a woman in Holloway. She's entitled to a visit. Her man's in here. He's entitled to a visit. So, she brings her here, they have the visit, then she takes her back to Holloway. And that's the way it always happens.
You know, I don't know what she thought prison officers were, but...
Well, as a general rule, the general public are ignorant of what we are.
Yeah.
You take HMP. I was on a railway station, we'd been on escort, and some old dear came up and said, well, what does HMP stand for? And one of the blokes said Himalayan Mounted Police. Of course, equally it said up meat pies or honesty, modesty and purity.
But there again, see, and then you get the prison officer horses again, because you go home to your wife on your weekend off, and she's already got a preconceived idea of what she wants to do for the weekend, and you walk in and you say, darling, I'm playing football Sunday morning. No, you're No, you won't, boss. You're taking me and the kids down to Margate for the day. I only see you every other weekend, you know.
Now the young ones, and we have an awful lot of youngsters in the prison, they like to be doubled up, they don't like to be alone. But the older woman, she likes privacy, she likes to be on her own. You see, they're in association all day, they work with others, they're in association all evening, and it's the only time they can be alone.
Some of us been here 5 days straight. You know, where does his kids, how is children? His wife feeds him for meal times, and that's about all. What is she? All she's doing is cooking for him.
I went and saw the game.
And warming him up at night.
The money on the table.
Well, this is Maidstone reception. All inmates passing through Maidstone go through here. They come through here when they're received in civilian clothes. They come through, they take it all off, strip right off, and they're provided with the prison clothing. They're also provided with all the other things they might need: toothbrushes, shaving brushes, clothes gear, pots, anything that they might need for their time in here. Maidstone, apart from that, it's a self-contained unit. Nearly. We're provided with food from other prisons. Got our own works department staffed by prison officers to stop the place falling to pieces. Central kitchen, so providing food for the 3 wings. Segregation unit for our troublemakers. Hospital if anybody's sick.
And what do you do with the prisoners all day?
All prisoners go to work, even if it's just cleaning in the wing. A number of workshops, tailor shop, print shop, nearly all government work though.
Yeah. What about education?
Well, the education department's very good really. They do nearly everything. They cover studies for the more intelligent men here up to open university level. Also for those who can't read and write. They've got full-time studies for those as well.
Has the prison its own welfare department?
Yeah, it's got a full-time welfare staff, also got a full-time chaplain.
And what about when they don't work?
Association in the evening, and also other facilities during the day. We've got 2 televisions in each wing, snooker, table tennis, a swimming pool, football pitch, a well-equipped gym.
Oh, it sounds like a bit of a holiday camp.
Yeah. Not really, not really. We do all their thinking for them. We tell them when to get up, when to go to bed, when to eat, what to eat. We remove the right and the ability to think and act for themselves. Might be right for some get used to it, but certainly wouldn't suit me.
There are some people here in this wing who personally I think will be very old men before they are finally released from prison. But that was one thing I would never tell them. It's an element of kidology.
How do you deal with a bloke like that if he is causing a bit of bother?
If a man is reacting subversely in the wing, it often works out that an officer that he gets on with, an officer that he knows and has a working relationship with, can often go to that man and have a natter to him and talk him round. Because always at the back of their mind they have this feeling, I've got to toe the line, you know, generally speaking, otherwise I'm never going to get out of this place. He might verbal off, abuse an officer or shout and hustle in the wing, but this is purely short term. It's a reaction that perhaps he thinks he's got to make, or his friends think he's got to make, over a specific issue. But really, when the heat's died down, he'll more than likely come up and say, look, I didn't really mean that, you know, just at the moment sort of thing. And it's all forgotten. But if that man was placed on report for that, for doing that, and put in front of the governor for disciplinary action, the relationship between me or the inmate, or an officer and the inmate who was involved, goes back 2 or 3 months.
So because they're doing life, they get away with a lot more than somebody who's doing a short term?
No, I'm not saying they get away with it. In actual fact, the rules apply exactly the same to a man doing life as to a man doing, say, a short term 6 months. The rules are there, but the interpretation of them is open for a more serious look with a man doing life in prison. Because we've... Yes, come in.
I want a life change.
Where to now, then?
Anywhere but not on the cleaners.
Well, we had this little chat, didn't we, a month ago? And I said at the time, we can't spare you off the cleaners. We're running fairly tight now, and as and when we can afford to let you go, we will seriously consider a move for you. But at the time being, we're running tight, and I can't afford to let you go. It's easy as that.
Yeah, well, surely there must be someone else who wants a cleaner's job.
Well, there are, but there are a lot of people that we don't want on the cleaners.
Why not?
Well, that's
one's as good as enough, you know, as the other.
Well, that's purely your opinion. Unfortunately, I'm in charge of cleaners and you're not.
Yo, how soon will I get this name changed?
Well, we'll have a chat later on. I'm a bit busy at the moment, but as I say, as and when I can spare you, I'll seriously consider letting you go.
Like a month ago?
Well, maybe next month, maybe the month after that, but my priority is the wing. And you're a reasonable worker, you do your job well, and I'm reluctant to let you go. Of course I am. I'm not going to cut my nose off to spite my face, am I?
No, I don't know.
Well, I'm not, and as and when I can spare you, I'll let you go. But for the time being, you plod on, and as I'm a bit busy, if you plod on right now, and we'll have a natter later on and see if we can work something out.
Right.
Okay. Where was I? I lost my drift. This is the trouble when you get people coming in and out. It throws you off.
It was something to do with bending the rules a little more for lifers.
Yeah, but we don't bend the rules. When you say no, or I want this done, you find yourself saying why you want it done.
Like the bloke that just came in.
Well, typical example.
Yeah.
5 or 6 years ago, it would have been sufficient to say no labour change. But today, that's not sufficient. This man was doing a life sentence, so he thinks someone's having a pop at him. So you say, well, and you explain yourself, you know, and then he goes away reasonably happy, and I'm happy because I've stopped him having his labour change, and he's gone away with a little illusion of grandeur, thinking, well, you know,
what a good fellow.
I must be good at my job. Yeah. You know, perhaps he'll give me a good job when he does let me go.
In an establishment like this, where men are doing long sentences, the major ball games, say like football, for example, then if things are going bad, then you know, these chaps, being as they are reluctant to accept the responsibility for things going wrong as being theirs, and they want a scapegoat. You know, if a particular team's losing, then they're losing because the centre forwards in the pay of the opposition, or the referee's bent, or something like this. This is it.
I can see this happening.
Then we find that as instructors, you've got to be constantly aware that because things are going well for 6 months or 12 months, at any time, subject to pressures on the individual, either in the prison or from outside, family matters, then a chap who's been really enthusiastic because of these other pressures can just suddenly stop coming. Yeah, and you don't see him. I mean, we've had one particular instance, you know, it's a classic as far as I'm concerned, from my own experience. A chap was coming down to this gymnasium for weight training for 12 months, and he never even spoke to any of the instructors. He came down for his session, he did his session, he just went, but there was no communication. Yeah. And this was over a 12-month period. And then he begins to get interested, he begins to think about competing and achieving awards. So he's got to use the PE staff. However, later on, you know, I was refereeing at the time, you know, a referee, again, that went against him, a decision went against him. He wouldn't accept this, and you're right back to square one where he's not talking. Yeah. But then again, you've still got to be prepared so that if he does come again, it's no good bearing malice. You cannot afford, in an establishment like this, to bear malice. This is why, PE-wise, we try not to get too involved in the offence that an inmate is serving his time for. Because, let's face it, we're the instructors, we're human as well. You know, to be aware of some of the diabolical things these blokes are doing time for, and then to be making every effort to ensure that is fit, well and happy, you know, there could be possibly a clash there. So that we take the chap as he is in the gym situation.
Do you find the relationship is different because you're not wearing a uniform?
No, I mean, the tracksuit is a uniform. No matter how we feel about this, we are still prison officers. I mean, this is a real system. I think it's important to continue to understand that we're on one side of the fence and they're on the other. Because no matter what your relationship is with the inmate, as prison officers, we can never really understand what it's like to be serving time. Because, you know, we're not locked up in a cell all the night. At 9 o'clock, 9:30, whatever finishing time is, we're off with our own family, for completely different surroundings. We're there here to stay. We've got to associate with people who they don't particularly want to associate with. We've got this freedom of choice. They haven't.
Well, at the training school, you'll be taught the correct methods. You'll be taught the rules, you'll be taught the department's instructions, you'll be told this is the way in which you will conduct A situation or B situation. You'll be told this. But then you come up against the big problem of when you go to, or you're posted to a prison or a borstal, of the interpretation at that establishment of the rules. And it may well differ vastly from what you've been told. Because various governors have very, very extreme views on things. Some comply with the rule book, others don't. Others don't even have it in the drawer. They don't even refer to it. The prison service over the last 10 years at least has, along with society, been changing. Some would think for the worst. I would be one of those who would think that. My view, personal view, which isn't shared by a lot of people, is that, as near as damn it, one should stick to these rules. It's nothing unpleasant to abide by a rule of the prison. It's nothing unpleasant to tell someone that they can't do this because it's not allowed. And therefore I don't see any problem. One needn't argue about it, one needn't have a confrontation about it. One can just create a situation in prison where everybody understands what has to happen, inmates and staff, and let's get on with it.
So all this paint stuff here?
That's my painting, that's, you know, when I get phases, you know, when I start painting and when I don't paint, you know.
Yeah, you got permission for it then?
Oh yeah, I've got permission for it, yeah.
You got permission for all that? That's whole box, is that full up there?
Yeah, full of tubes.
I thought there was a new instruction about that there's only supposed to be small quantities, not
well, this
as much as what we've got there.
From, you know, some from Wandsworth, which I brought with me, and the rest, you know, I've just accumulated, you know.
What's this paint?
That's paint which I painted the wall with, actually.
No thinners then?
No thinners, no, it's just emulsion paint.
Well, we'll leave it there for the time being anyway, Pat, and we'll check it up.
Yeah, we'll have to check on this, you realise that, don't you?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't like all my letters read.
But neither would I, neither would most people, but when you're in the prison situation, this censoring must be done. There is also mainly the aspect of the security nature.
Yeah, but they get visits and things. Surely they can say anything.
Yeah, this is true.
Up.
They also try and get what we term in the trade as stiffs, illicit letters out. And also they try and, sometimes, they try and get a message through to a person to whom they're not writing, through an official letter. So we have to do this. Also the same, through incoming mail. A man may get the Dear John from his wife.
Dear John.
The letter saying that she's found another chap while he's been away. Also the fact that one of the kids may have been hurt in a road accident. And these sort of things, the human relationship side of the sensor inside is very important, because we find that if a man receives this letter, he might be a normal, everyday, happy-go-lucky type of bloke, and then all of a sudden, bang, he goes the other way.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about this side.
And we do this, when we get these letters, we inform all the other members of staff in the wing, or in the case it may even be a shop instructor. We phone them up and say, look, old Charlie Jones has had a dodgy letter this morning, watch him this afternoon, he may be a little bit touchy, and you know, it saves a lot of trouble between the inmate himself and us, and also the other inmates around him. You know, if we know that he's got one or two close friends, we'll say to him, well, look, old so-and-so's missus has written in to say that she doesn't want to know him when he goes out. You know, watch him for a couple of days. But usually you'll find that they get over this quite quickly. You know, they sort of accept it after a while, because it was part of their sentence. This is one of the hazards of prison life, you know.
A man comes to me, he doesn't go to the welfare officer or to the doctor or to the officer, he comes to a chaplain because he's about to cry his eyes out, and he cries his eyes out in that chair. Well, part of, I think, the culture of the Christian priesthood is to listen to him, to sympathise with him, not to agree with him always, but to regard him as a person and let him cry. Never letting him down by telling those outside. I've seen tough guys out of Kent come in here, swaggering in to see the chaplain, crying their eyes out, telling me all sorts of intimate things, and then swaggering out again, keeping the image which they know about on the wing. Now, that's the job of a priest in prison. I wouldn't seek to justify it. I think the work of a priest is to be where there's need, where people are at need. If he's a Christian, or as I say, the Church of Turkey, it doesn't really matter to me. What does matter is that one is able to keep alive this breaking or broken spirit, and perhaps in a sense to resurrect him, or would that be too religious a word to use?
Well, wearing what you are, it's exactly the word to use, I suppose.
And I think it's not only the chaplain's role, but it's the officer's role as well, to persuade, cajole, whatever, this particular person to see himself as he really is, not as he pretends to be. And something of prison can do that. It can make him a new man, I think. On the other hand, it can be broken by his own culture or by going off the officers, that he will always dislike an officer as he dislikes a policeman.
So what you are really is sort of a half welfare officer and a half psychologist.
Oh, neither a psychologist nor a welfare officer. There's a different ministry. The welfare officer sees the person as his client, the doctor sees the person or the inmate, to use that word, as a patient, the psychologist also as a patient, but the priest sees the person as, to use a very old word, soul, as a soul. And by virtue of this, he doesn't treat him as a patient-client or sort of a professional relationship. He identifies with the person. He cries with him when he cries. He laughs with him when he laughs. He holds his hand sometimes like that, in order that he might be himself, catching on to the, say his wife or mother's died or the child's died. One of the tragedies of prison is helplessness. The man is utterly helpless. And this is the extent of the punishment as far as I see it. To be there, unable to phone up, perhaps not to write. And this begins to break him. He feels like a thing instead of being the person. He sort of becomes depersonalized. But if there is an officer there who has a kind word, not a sentimental extrovert sort of behavior, always being kind to him, but a genuine response to the inmate as a person-to-person thing, then this thingness about him tends to go away, and he sees his place in society, his place in the society of the wing. Yeah.
So would you say the landing officer that opens the cell first thing in the morning has to try and be the welfare officer, the chaplain,
yeah,
the psychologist?
He hasn't to try to be anything. He's got to be a person. He's got to be a genuine bloke who is a screw.
Can I interrupt a minute?
Yeah.
With this attitude that we're building up here, what you just said and what you just said, surely we're getting away from the purpose of putting a man in prison in the first place.
What is
it's
that
supposed to be a deterrent, isn't it?
A deterrent?
Of some nature. I mean, they've done away with what was classed as the ultimate deterrent.
I think he comes to prison because his neighbours feel he ought to.
Well, that's exactly right.
Because he's made mistakes. He's broken into a bank or he's clobbered an old lady, and he ought to be in prison because he's done that. He's a naughty boy.
Yeah.
But once he's got into prison, it's then that we can start. One, that he mustn't deteriorate and become a thing, as we talked about. But on the other hand, I think that prison is a place where he can learn and grow, even though it's said that he can't.
Yes, but does it work?
Sometimes it does.
But surely we're not here to mollycoddle them, you know, I mean, they have done something wrong against society, and we're here to sort them out. I don't mean we should go around kicking them or anything, but, you know, the theme we've got on to by talking like this and saying that we help them here, and you've got to be, the landing officer's got to do this and do that.
I think that the landing officer has to be himself. He has his own ideas of, he keeps the rules, he unlocks the man, he sees that he's fed and watered, as it were, but it's more than that. Anything that he tries to pretend to be, the man knows. Cons are very able to see a man that's genuine and understand genuineness, and they have their own nicknames for officers, and they have for chaplains as well. But what I'm saying is that if the prison officer is himself, you see, it's far easier to make a gentle man hard than to make a hard man gentle. But sometimes you have this sort of military image, the officer who bends his cap like that and stands. I saw an officer the other day opening and closing a gate for the wife of one of the inmates that I'd seen, a little frail little soul going out with a kiddie. And this officer turned the key, opened the door, looked at me, looked at this poor little girl who sort of crept out through the door like that, and then banged the door and locked it. I couldn't do a thing. He did his job. He opened and locked the door. Yeah. That's all he did.
You still haven't
arrogant so-and-so he was.
You still haven't answered my question. Does it work? Because you see the prison population rising all the time. Does this new approach really work?
I don't think it's a new approach. I've known men who are many years' experience in the service who have a sort of innate gentleness about them. And at times of crisis, they can be very helpful to an inmate. For instance, if you inform an inmate that his mother has died, and you do so at 9:05 at night when all the inmates are locked up, and only a few officers there, we can go and get this inmate, bring him down, having told him that there's tragedy in the family. And it's the big burly screw, the officer, who says, "Come on, son, it'll be all right," gives him a cup of tea. Now, here is a very formalized, very traditional officer doing the job of a father. Isn't this what an officer is sometimes? In other words, he has the ability to change his roles, to be firm and stern, and at the same time to be kind and accepting.
And then there will be your visit to the local prison at Canterbury. Totally different regime from here. And tomorrow you'll be going to the Borsal, a different regime again. For a kick-off, the staff there wear civvies. No doubt they'll be taking you around the farm. We get our milk from there. I'm not sure how big it is, but it's a pretty big place.
The farm extends down to the fence there, along the bottom where the motorway is, down towards the motorway bridge there. It's about 240 acres in all. And then you've got the farm buildings behind, the piggeries and the cattle stables. So it's quite a good-sized farm altogether. The motorway there, that's the M2 which leads up to London. On outside parties, you know, you've just got to accept that there will be people absconding, and that is the way they go when they do go.
You're getting back fairly soon?
Oh yeah, generally within 24 hours, most of them.
Are most of you boys from the London area?
That is our main catchment area, yeah, it's southeast. But London's got the biggest population.
About working on a farm when they come from London?
In summer, they love it, really lap it up, you know. In winter time, they're not over fond, you know, it's a bit cold, but it goes for the officers as well, you know. I like it in summer, but not in this weather. That's the hospital and medical centre on your left. Serious cases, of course, go to outside hospitals. We're just there for minor ailments. The wards here are smaller than there would be in a prison like Maidstone, as you've noticed. We've got 5 wings here. C wing's the new wing, brand new wing, opened about 4 years ago. And B, D and E wings are the old cellular types, probably like you get at Maidstone. And A wing, which we're going to go to now, is unique in itself because it's a dormitory type. Yeah. With 4 dormitories, each holding about 24 lads. Yeah, the boys here are from 15 years old to 21 years of age on the date of sentence.
And what kind of role do you find yourself playing?
With boys, you've got to be everything. You're their family link, you know, you're the mother, the father, the brother, sister, everything.
Do you find it difficult to get on with them?
No, some just don't want to know you, and they never will. And others will come forward to you, you know. Yeah.
Have you got all the age groups all together in the one dormitory?
Yeah. Altogether.
Any problems?
Well, no problems really. I mean, they're working themselves.
Do the boys graduate from the cells to the dormitories?
No, they're only sent in when there are vacancies. They just come in normally.
So I bet it's chaos in here at lights out.
It's not too bad, actually. The lads run the dormitories themselves. Most of them want to go to bed at lights out, and so they rule.
Would you rather work in a prison or a brothel?
Well, I didn't choose to come here, but I was sent here, as you'll be posted. But now I'm here, I'd like to stay with the lads.
Let me have a good old quiet training prison. By talking to these blokes, you know, there's some entirely different places. You know, these cat C's, which just have a wire net around and no walls.
At the school, they're rammed security down your throats. And they're right, of course. The type of security differs from place to place.
And I found that in all the 7 prisons I've done, that the job starts and finishes on the landing.
Only minor things, but to a con they're a lot. A spoonful of sugar to a con is a lot. I've seen men literally fight over a spoonful of sugar on a hot plate. Something, but if you spilt it, you just sweep it up outside and throw it away. But to a man in prison, these things mean a lot.
There's a large grey area where you use your own initiative when talking to a man. One man might need a short, sharp word. Yeah. Another one will probably need a little bit more guidance.
There are many boring jobs in the prison service. For instance, you take being in a workshop all day, something like our carpenter's shop here. I mean, you're standing there and all you're doing is watching the men work, counting them in, counting them out, rubbing them down as they go in.
On a weekday, of course, they go to work 8 o'clock, come back lunch 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock they go back to work, and at 5 o'clock they're banged up until 6, 6:30, and then we have association right the way through then till 9.
You can be on a landing on your own with 20, 30 or 40 prisoners. And if you haven't got some sort of relationship with them, how can you control them? You have to aim for control by relationships. Control through respect. Some prison officers would laugh at this and say, well, there's always the book, you can always put people on the report, but okay, you can do this, but you can't get away with it forevermore. You've got to relate in some way or other.
This is the punishment wing, better known as the block, where a prisoner would come and do his CC. CC? That's confinement to cell and loss of privileges. After, if you'd like to go first, after you've been adjudicated on by the governor or the board of visitors.
This is punishments for what sort of thing?
Offences against good order and discipline, abusive language, this type of thing, drugs, having drugs, etc.
Yeah. Do you get much drugs?
Quite a bit, yes. This is the segregation part of the wing. We go up here now.
Does the governor deal with this sort of thing then?
No, he deals with the minor offences, the board of visitors with the more serious offences. This is the segregation wing here, where the Royal 43s are housed. They're up here for good order and discipline or for their own protection.
What, from other prisoners?
From other prisoners, yes, that's right.
But what's the function of the works department inside the prison?
Well, it's responsible for the maintenance of all the buildings inside the prison, responsible for electrical and mechanical maintenance, and also for the prison officers' quarters outside.
Yes, because I was thinking of moving over onto the electrical side myself.
Yeah, well, you've got to obviously wait to finish your training off on the discipline side, and then you move over onto the works department. You then carry on and do 3 years as a tradesman, and then you're eligible to sit the Engineer 2 examination.
Yes, and what does this entail,
the exam? Well, that usually takes 2 days. You do a building construction, building drawing, electrical and mechanical, and theory, and also you do a practical test also on most trades.
I've shown you the dental room, X-ray room, the treatment room. I think that's about it, really. We're pretty well equipped. We can do more or less anything we need to do in this place.
Yeah, quite surprising. Have you, in fact, been a hospital officer ever since you joined the prison service?
No, for the first 4 years I was on discipline, but then I came on the hospital side.
Excuse me, Mr. Cavender, you wanted on